but when I was having this conversation with my friend, we were talking about how I feel like my entire life I've been trying to conquer femininity. And somewhere along the way, I feel like femininity conquered me.
When we first meet Jules Vaughn, she feels less like a person and more like a dream. She glides into the gray suburban landscape of Euphoria on a bicycle, a whirlwind of pastel hair, glitter, and a style so uniquely her own, it feels like it's from another planet. Through the eyes of our narrator, Rue, Jules is an angel, a miracle, the most beautiful girl in the world. She's presented not just as a love interest, but as a cure, a vibrant, ethereal being who might just be the key to saving Rue from herself. But what happens when a person is treated like a savior? What is the weight of being someone else's reason to live? This is the central conflict of Jules Vaughn. She is a character constantly being defined by the desires, fantasies, and needs of others. Her entire arc is a desperate, often messy struggle to carve out an identity for herself, separate from the projections placed upon her. This is the story of a girl burdened with the impossible task of being a savior, and how that very burden sets her on a collision course between self-discovery and self-destruction. Is Jules the angel everyone wants her to be, or is she just as fractured, just as lost, and just as human as everyone else in the chaotic world of Euphoria? Chapter 1. The Manic Pixie Dream Girl Illusion. Before we can understand who Jules is, we have to talk about who everyone thinks she is. And in the beginning, she is the perfect embodiment of a well-worn archetype, the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. You know the type. The quirky, effervescent girl who swoops into a brooding protagonist's life to teach them how to embrace their feelings and live in the moment, all without having any real goals or inner life of her own. She's not a person, she's a plot device. In Season 1, this is exactly how Rue sees her. Our initial view of Jules is filtered entirely through Rue's love-struck, drug-addled narration. Jules isn't just a new girl in town, she's an event, a solution, a splash of brilliant color in Rue's monotonous world. Their time together is a montage of whimsical adventures, late-night bike rides, spontaneous tattoos, and deep talks under starry nights. In Rue's mind, Jules is magic, and this magical quality is what she believes can keep her sober. But Rue isn't the only one projecting a fantasy on her. In his own violent and twisted way, Nate Jacobs also sees Jules as an idealized object. To him, she is the embodiment of a pure, almost untouchable femininity, the exact opposite of the complex, raw, and often confrontational dynamic he has with Maddie. He puts her on a pedestal, seeing her as an innocent angel to be worshipped and ultimately controlled. Being trapped between these two powerful fantasies, Rue's savior and Nate's virgin, leaves no room for Jules to be herself. The Manic Pixie Dream Girl is a narrative trap, and by placing her in it, the show masterfully sets her up for an inevitable fall. When she finally acts out of her own desires, her own pain, and her own needs, she shatters the illusions that others have built around her. The consequences are devastating, not just for those who idolized her, but for Jules herself, marking the beginning of her long, painful journey to reclaim her own story. Chapter 2. The Weight of Rue's World. The romance between Rue and Jules is the emotional core of Euphoria, but it's a love story built on a terrifyingly unstable foundation. From the beginning, their relationship is steeped in a profound codependency. Rue doesn't just fall in love with Jules, she makes Jules the cornerstone of her sobriety. In one of the most telling moments of the series, Rue's mom thanks Jules for keeping her daughter clean, officially handing a teenager the life or death responsibility for her child. This is an impossible burden for anyone, let alone a young girl who is still grappling with her own significant trauma and identity. The weight of Rue's world is placed squarely on Jules' shoulders, and we see it suffocate her. She becomes a detective, constantly monitoring Rue, consumed by the fear that one wrong move on her part could lead to Rue's relapse, or worse. The love between them, which started as a source of light and freedom, quickly becomes a cage. This immense pressure builds to the heartbreaking climax of season 1, the train station. Jules' decision to leave Rue behind is not an act of malice. It's a desperate act of self-preservation. It's the first time she definitively chooses her own needs, her own desire for escape, and a life beyond her small town, over her role as Rue's protector. It's a messy, selfish, and deeply human choice that shatters the angelic image Rue had of her. This moment is pivotal. It marks the death of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl and the birth of a far more complex character. In leaving Rue, Jules is finally attempting to step out of the savior role she never asked for. But in doing so, she unwittingly sets both of them on a more destructive path, proving that when you're carrying the weight of someone else's world, you can't put it down without causing an earthquake. Chapter 3. A Canvas for Others' Desires. To truly understand Jules, we have to look beyond the projections of others and examine the pattern she creates for herself. Her past is a shadow that shapes every interaction, particularly when it comes to love and intimacy. We learn that her journey with her own identity was marked by a profound sense of abandonment. Her mother, struggling with her transition, institutionalized her before spiraling into addiction. This early trauma establishes a devastating pattern, a deep-seated need for affirmation, especially from figures who are themselves unstable or emotionally unavailable. This is where Jules' relationship with her own femininity becomes so complex and often so dangerous. In her special episode, she articulates a heartbreaking truth. For years, she has built her idea of womanhood around what men desire. Her online encounters with older, often aggressive men are not just about exploration, they're a calculated performance. She becomes a canvas for their fantasies, seeking their approval as a way to validate her own identity as a woman. It's a twisted form of power, finding control by embodying someone else's ideal. She's so afraid of what her own unpainted self might look like that she continuously hands the brush to someone else.
Chapter 4. The Special Episode. Finding Her Voice. For an entire season, we only knew Jules through the distorted lens of Rue's narration, a beautiful, tragic, but ultimately unreliable perspective. Then came her special episode, F Anyone Who's Not a C-Blob, and for the first time, the narrative was truly hers. This episode isn't just a supplement to the main story. It's the key that unlocks the entirety of her character. In the quiet, raw space of a therapist's office, the layers are finally peeled back. Jules is no longer a dream girl. She is a young woman reckoning with a lifetime of pain. She eloquently connects the dots between her relationship with her mother and her relationship with Rue, revealing a pattern of feeling responsible for the sobriety and emotional stability of the people she loves most. She admits that she feels suffocated by Rue's love, because it's a love that feels conditional, hanging precariously on Rue's ability to stay clean. More importantly, she confronts her own understanding of her identity. She speaks of her desire to go off her hormones, not because she wants to detransition, but because she wants to untangle her womanhood from the male gaze. She's questioning a femininity that she built for others. And in its place, she imagines something new, the C-Blob. This beautiful, abstract idea represents a formless, unconditional state of being. Love and identity that exist without labels, without binaries, and without the need for anyone else's approval. This episode is Jules' moment of painful, brilliant clarity. She is finally given the language to articulate her own internal landscape. She now understands why she has made the choices she's made, and what she truly craves. But self-awareness is not a cure. The real question is, what does a person do once they finally understand the cage they've been living in? Chapter 5. The inevitable collision. Self-discovery versus self-destruction. Armed with this newfound self-awareness, Jules enters Season 2 on a mission to live for herself. But breaking free from the role of a savior is not a clean process. It's a chaotic, painful, and often destructive collision of her past patterns and her future desires. She tries to establish boundaries. She tells Rue that she can't be the only reason she stays sober, but she is almost immediately pulled back into the familiar, toxic dance of codependency. Rue's addiction looms over them, and Jules once again finds herself consumed by guilt and fear. Then, Elliot enters the picture. To Jules, Elliot represents an escape hatch. He's someone who sees her and desires her without placing the weight of his world on her. Their connection feels light, easy, and free from the life-or-death stakes of her relationship with Rue. Their subsequent affair, while a deep betrayal, is also a messy, misguided attempt at self-discovery. She's finally choosing her own pleasure and her own desires. But because she doesn't know how to do that without causing harm, she ends up hurting the person she loves most. It's the tragic paradox of her journey. Her first real steps towards independence are also acts of self-destruction. This culminates in her most significant act of the season, revealing Rue's relapse to her mother. In Rue's eyes, it's the ultimate betrayal. But in many ways, it's an act of profound, albeit brutal, love. Jules is finally refusing to carry the secret and the responsibility. She hands the burden back to where it belongs, with Rue and her family. It is a desperate, explosive act, but it's her final attempt to shatter the savior role once and for all. By the end of the season, Jules has successfully demolished every pedestal she was placed upon. She's no longer Nate's angelic fantasy, nor is she Rue's reason to live. She's just Jules, flawed, complicated, and for the first time, terrifyingly free to figure out who that is on her own terms.
Conclusion. Beyond the savior complex. So, where does this leave Jules Vaughn? For 2 seasons, we've watched her navigate a minefield of expectations. She was cast as the angelic savior, the whimsical dream girl, the emotional anchor for a drowning soul. But the truth is, Jules was never a savior. She was a mirror, reflecting back the desires and needs of everyone who looked at her. And her journey has been about shattering that mirror, no matter how painful the fallout. Her path has been a chaotic dance between self-discovery and self-destruction. She has hurt people, most profoundly Rue, in her desperate attempts to find a version of herself that isn't defined by someone else's love or survival. But her story serves as a powerful, if cautionary, tale. It's a raw depiction of the crushing weight of being someone's everything and the messy, imperfect process of reclaiming your own identity. Jules's journey reminds us that we cannot place the burden of our happiness on another person, nor can we carry that burden for them. Ultimately, Jules Vaughn is not a hero or a villain. She is something far more interesting, a work in progress. She is a young woman finally beginning the difficult work of loving herself, not for who she is to others, but for who she is on her own. She may not have reached the formless, beautiful freedom of her sea blob just yet, but for the first time, she's swimming in her own ocean.
But what I really want to know is, where do you land on Jules? For every fan who sees her as a victim of circumstance, there's another who can't forgive her for her choices. Is her journey an empowering story of self-discovery or a tragic tale of betrayal? There's no easy answer, which is probably what makes her so compelling. Drop your take in the comments. I'm genuinely curious to read them. If you enjoyed getting into the weeds on this, a subscription to the channel ensures you won't miss my next breakdown. And speaking of which, I have already untangled the heartbreaking case of Rue Bennett over here. Thanks for watching.